All right, you guys. So welcome to our bi-weekly Team Rock Hard Bodies call. So we have special guest Shelly Heim with us this afternoon. I'm super excited. I feel like now is actually a better time than ever to truly have Shelly on the call. Shelly is a coach that I met, 2 years ago? And we work really closely together through the Portland Market Council to put on our Super Saturdays here in Portland. And she has really gone through some pretty tough situations and tragedies. And I love her story of how she dug in deep and leaned into the Beachbody community instead of pulling away and going into a deep, dark hole. And today, Shelly's going to share with you just her struggles, what she's gone through, and how she's overcome that to build a top elite team, and how she has been able to build a six-figure business by going through all these tragedies, and how she's kind of turned them into her journey. So Shelly is an amazing coach. She lives over on the Oregon coast. She's been a coach since 2012. In 2013, she was a premier coach, and then in 2014 and 15, an elite coach. So her team has taken it all the way to the top 1% in the company because she has led by amazing example and has a team of rock star coaches. So she also is a Success Club All-Star legend for 54 consecutive months. So 54 consecutive months of being in Success Club is huge success trail. So when they say success leave clues, you definitely look at how people are consistent with hitting Success Club. That is a great way to see someone's consistency. She's currently a 7-star diamond coach and a 1-star in her second CBC, and founder of Team Become the Dream. So super excited, Shelly, to have you on, and go ahead. We have the call open.
Okay, so, first of all, I want you to ask yourself and really think about this, because we're going to revisit this, and how I overcame 3 major life changes since I've been a Beachbody coach. And I wouldn't say overcame these struggles. They were life events that happened in my life that weren't just simple struggles. They were major tragedies. And I want you to ask yourself how your life is different now since you found Beachbody. And how this all ties and can tie into the vital behaviors for you. So first of all, in my experience, I did not start this business until, I shouldn't say start the business. I did not start working on myself until I was 43 years old. And I had, in 2011, kept hearing about a program called P90X. And so I asked on Facebook who was doing it and if it was worth doing it and what people thought. And I had a fitness background, but I had kind of hit this place in my life where partying every weekend with my friends, and I was married at the time, and we were very social, and lots of fun dinners every weekend, and too much wine and too much overindulging. And I was just, fitness wasn't working for me anymore. Just running 4 miles every day was not working for me anymore. I felt bloated and yucky, and my thoughts were really negative, and I was super busy in my job, and I just kind of was really lost. So I really had succumbed to thinking, here I am in my 40s, like life has changed now. I'm not going to be 120 pounds anymore. It's going to be difficult. But when I looked in the mirror, I just was so sad. It's like I just saw myself aging so rapidly. And like I had no dimension to me. I was just living on the surface. I wasn't thinking deep thoughts. I wasn't trying to help myself. I was just going through life. And so I started P90X, bought it off of the Beachbody website. And I think Tommy Migrant might have been the coach I was assigned to, and I never responded to one message that he sent me. So I was very uncoachable, and I went through that whole year of consistently doing P90X. I followed the schedule to a T every 90 days, every 90 days, every 90 days. But I thought I knew everything about it, everything. And when I got done and took progress photos for the first time ever, because I didn't do it in the beginning. So I didn't have a good base. I just had pictures of my daily life in the beginning. I was just so sad and depressed when I saw those pictures because I felt strong. I thought I got like super duper fit, but I didn't look much different. And so I knew the missing component was nutrition, and I didn't know where to go. So I just asked on Facebook again, and a girl I went to high school with was a Beachbody coach, and she said, this is what you need to do, X, Y, Z. So long story short, I became, by now I was 44, and with her advice of eating clean and getting through 3 weekends of no wine, because I would never drink during the week, it was just on the weekends, I dropped over 15 pounds, lost over 10% body fat, and my whole life opened up. And it wasn't just the way I looked, it was my whole mental state changed from that moment on. And that was 5 years ago. So within 6 weeks of me cleaning up my diet and proper nutrition in 2012, 2011, I couldn't believe what was happening to me. Like all the personal development that I started to do, tied in with the nutrition, tied into now getting a sense that I could actually help people. Like I didn't know what coaching was about, but I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops how good I felt. But the component I couldn't get over is how much more mentally and emotionally strong I was becoming. And I had exercised my whole life, so that wasn't an issue for me. What was changing was the food and eliminating wine and sugar, getting through 3 full weekends of not having those indulgences and really feeling so truly amazing and wanting to just keep bettering myself. Every single day I woke up with a smile on my face. I was happy. I was ecstatic to eat grapes. I mean, it just was like, everything was, every day there was more and more clearness within my world, my marriage, what I wanted out of this life. And in the process of this happening, this is the first thing that happened to me. My mom started really failing in her health at the age of 64. She retired early. She had 9 years of retirement behind her at this point. When she retired, I asked her what her plan was, and she said, I don't know what my plan is. I just don't want to work anymore. And she had a long, sad story leading up to this. But anyway, she did end up retiring, and she gained 10 pounds a year for 9 years. And she gained 90 pounds on a very small 5-foot frame. And her health started really failing. She had congestive heart failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, COPD, you name it, she had it. And everything she had could have been preventable, could have been prevented had she listened to me or tried to change her life a little bit, and she didn't. And unfortunately, that was the first life-altering event that happened to me at the time, right when I was really starting to get that mental clarity. She died. And it was awful. She died of an infection that her body could not fight. So she died of gangrene sepsis, and it was very, very hard to watch, and it was very sad, and it happened very, very quickly and suddenly. So at the time, my old self would have reverted back and gone into the bottle of wine and under the covers and not come out for a while. But because I've started to really, really, truly feel good physically, I knew that I couldn't let my nutrition go, and I could not stop exercising. If those were the two things that was going to get me through her death, I had to hold on to them. And I really paid attention to what I was doing. By now, Beachbody had become a pretty big part of my life, not as big as it is now or it was 2 years ago, but at the time I had a small team, and I was building my business slowly, and I was helping other women. So I had people to support me and reach out to me. I live in a very small town. I don't have a large family. And I just, through my grief, started helping others. And I'm a person that wears my heart on her sleeve. So I had set up this private women's group. It was like a big challenge group, but it was private and it was for women only. And it was just kind of a place where I added my friends, and I didn't know about making new friends at that point. I didn't know about adding 3 people to my world every day. I didn't know any of that. It was just kind of organically happening because I was having such great results with Beachbody. So I was sharing what I was going through in this private women's group in regards to my mother's death, and getting amazing support from these women that I was helping and building this amazing community of people. So it was my first experience of having a direct association to a very, very hard, sad situation, but with a positive support system through Beachbody, through what I was going through clean eating, through taking care of myself, through exercise. And ironically, I was doing Chelene Extreme at this time, and I could not do cardio, but I could lift weights. I don't know what it was. Like emotionally, I just could not give out that much more energy, but at least I could lift those weights. So I just focused on those 3 days of weight training, and I did my personal development every day, which I wasn't like long-term thinking ahead of Beachbody at this point. I wasn't thinking that this was going to be my career change. I wasn't thinking that this was going to be like financial stability for me. I was just helping people and selling a few bags of Shakeology, but I was learning about personal development at the time. And so there was things I couldn't read before her death that I was reading, but I could read her prayer book that she left for me every single day. So I had these strengths that I found that I would have never, ever had those tools presented to me had I not been involved in Beachbody, had I not had this positive association to the support and the love and the care and people like wrapping their arms around me in a virtual sense and oftentimes, but at the same regard, it just like was my fuel. The only thing that kind of was helping was opening my computer every day and going into that women's group and sharing a post about why you shouldn't eat sugar every day. Those little things just kept me kind of lifted up and my spirits lifted up. And knowing that if I did go back to that bottle of wine, I was not going to come out of this okay. I was not going to recover. I was not going to learn lessons I needed to learn at this time, which I learned a lot, and I'm still able to pay a lot of those things I learned at the time forward because of Beachbody. So think about that person you were, before Beachbody, and think about that person you are now. How do you react to things? How much different are you? I know I'm a lot less reactive. I think about things before I talk about things. I have a filter now. I don't take things so personal when life events are thrown at me. And I started just seeing myself as this ray of light that was so much different. It wasn't so dark and weird and depressed and scared. I was not playing light of my mother's death in any way, but I was becoming much more capable of dealing with her death and the sadness, and taking care of my brother who, she raised basically since our father died when Eric was 14 and I was 18. So my dad died very young at 38 years old, and she was it. She was our rock. She was everything to us. And my brother was much more closer to her than I was. But in the same regard, we were just this little tiny family that grew up in a trailer park in the Alsea Bay. And, that's where that was our life. And so it was very, very hard to lose her. And then it was like Eric and I against the world at that point. Even though you're older, you still kind of revert back to like this little childhood age, or your roles where you were when you were children. And that's what Eric and I were kind of going through, and he and I were very close, but this brought us a lot closer. So fast forward a couple years after that, maybe it was 1 year, my husband and I hit a very, very rough patch in our marriage. And by now, I'm much more into Beachbody. He was struggling with the transition I was making, not only physically, taking care of myself, not drinking as much, eating good, changing our diet in our home. We do not have children. And he wasn't quite ready to jump on board. And I wasn't pressuring him by any means. I slowly introduced things. I was very careful, but I was also not going back to that way of life. And so it caused some problems in our marriage, and we separated. A really extreme event happened, and it was very hard. It was very damaging. It was a progressive, negative situation over time that led to a huge blow up, and I left our home for 6 weeks with no intention to go back. And by this time, I might have been maybe a 2-star diamond or 3-star diamond, something like that. But I really leaned into Beachbody and the Beachbody community at this point, and I was completely defeated. I didn't know where my life was going to go. I was still cutting hair 60 hours a week. I was also a salon owner until February of this year. I was in the hairstyling business and salon business for 30 years. That was my career. And I sold my salon this year. But, there was all this stuff happening with me pretty fast. And it was hard for Ryan to keep up with me and to see these changes. It was difficult. And one thing led to another. Alcohol was involved, and I moved out with never really expecting him to change and be on board with this. So I just was face dead blank, looking ahead going, where's my life going to go? What am I going to do? Am I going to have to buy a house? Am I going to have to rent an apartment? Am I going to move out of the state, off the coast? There were so many questions I had. And so what I did was I just, again, opened my computer every day, went into my challenge groups that I was now hosting on a regular basis. And the only thing that took my mind off of what we were going through, what I was going through, all of the hardship, was helping other people, paying it forward. It was very, very, it would have been very easy for me to disappear. I wanted to disappear at this time. I was embarrassed. I was sad. I was, excuse me just a second. Sorry about that. I felt very alone. I had a lot of family issues because of it, from both sides of our family, our marriage, our intertwined family. It was really, really, really a difficult time. And again, by now I had a lot of coaches on my team who loved me and supported me. And I just kept diving into my personal development, going back to those 3 vital behaviors. I never gave up on my exercise. I did not disappear. If I needed help, if I just needed a day where I couldn't be in my challenge groups or whatever the case was, I asked for help. I asked for help from my upline. They offered. It was hard for me. I'm not the kind of person that wants to ask for help or wants handouts. I've never been that way. I've been very independent, worked since I was 12 years old. So it was difficult, but between the personal development and knowing how much care and love was out there in Beachbody, it wasn't as bad as I thought to ask for help. And it was very easy for me, my upline, and I'm sure Jessica's the same way. If you are going through some struggles, my upline reached out to me and said, Shelly, I know this is a really difficult time for you. If you need anything, if you need to check on your sponsorship drill down, if you need me to do some posterior challenge groups and be you for a while, I'm happy to do that. I mean, there were so many resources I had that were truly genuine people loving me and helping me and caring for me, because at this point I didn't want my business to fail. I really didn't want to disappear, but it was hard not to. And first of all, the next story I'm going to tell you is really, really tragic. And I want you to know that I know some of you, or maybe none of you, or, you know, we all come from different places. We all are in different places in our worlds. But if you are going through something that's really hard right now, I don't ever want you to feel that somebody's going through something harder. And there always is somebody going through something harder, always. But that doesn't take away from what you're going through. Don't let that take away from what you're going through. And know that what you're going through is super, duper, duper important. And it's just as important as what I went through with my mom, what I went through with my husband, and what I went through in this next story I'm going to tell you. But I also want you to think about your reasons why you're doing this business. Take yourself back to that place, the reasons why you are a coach, the reasons why this is important for you to be successful, because those reasons, and if they're strong enough, are going to also help carry you through these difficult times that you're facing. And if you have been blessed enough in this life to not have something really tragic happen to you, I hope you live out the rest of your life that way. But I'm also going to be very realistic with you and tell you that something's going to come. And something's going to come that is going to be out of your control. And it's going to be thrown at you when you least expect it. And I want you to be prepared for that, in a sense that you are strong physically, you are strong mentally, you are strong emotionally, and you have support. And isn't that a beautiful thing that Beachbody gives us? Is all four of those things, if we allow it. So, and going through that with my husband, I moved back in after 6 weeks, and we went through a little bit of a honeymoon phase, and then the tough work began. And for almost 2 solid years, it was constant therapy, constant communication, finding a new way. Brian quit drinking. I had quit drinking a while before that. So we were 2 different people. We were trying to get to know each other again. But what Beachbody also taught me, and which was so instilled in me, is that I was not the person who was going to give up. And if he was willing to try, by gosh, I was willing to try. And our marriage was extremely, extremely important to me. Our vows, the life that we had built together. And we're still pretty youngly married. We've only been married 11 years this August. So this happened at our 7-year mark. And it was, and they say the 7-year mark itch or whatever happens, blah, it happened, and it blew up right in our faces. So we did a lot of work. But again, I would not have had the tools to do that work and to fight for our marriage and to fight for me working on me, because I had to own what my issues were within the relationship. Ryan had to own what his issues were in the relationship, and we had to work on ourselves separately as well as work on ourselves together. I would have never been able to figure that out without Beachbody. I wouldn't have. I know that in my heart. So again, another positive association to the tools that Beachbody had given me and where it was helping me in this specific life altering event. I also don't believe in coincidence. So I believe that Beachbody came into my life at a really amazing time, preparing me for these life events that had occurred and were gonna occur again. So I just want you to know that as hard as it is sometimes when something really tragic is happening in your life, when we want to disappear, when you don't feel like you can give one more ounce of energy to anybody else, or write one more awesome comment on somebody's post because you're not feeling awesome. I want you to know that I think it's more devastating to disappear than it is to stay in it, and to ask for help, and to be present somewhat, as much as you can, and at least reach out to your upline and say, look, I'm struggling. Reach out to Jessica. I know Tanya's involved in this team as well, and she's amazing also. Reach out to them and say, look, I need to step back. Can you help me? They are going to help you. They are going to help run your challenge groups if you can't do it. They don't want your whole your little, if they're little or big organizations, to fall apart. They want to keep supporting you. That's what we're here for. Not only through the good times and the recognition and all the celebration, but we're also here through the really horrific, awful, icky, terrible times. So fast forward to 2012. By now, life is settling in. Ryan and I are doing much better. Rifts in our families because of what we went through in our marriage have been mended. Things are really pretty good. Everything's great. It was winter time here. Actually, it was March. So March is still winter in Oregon. But I was doing P90X3 after it launched. I was feeling so amazing and so good about myself, and everything was falling into place. My business was thriving. Everything was great. And I went to work on a Wednesday morning on March 12th, and a car pulled up outside my salon, and my heart sank. And two people, one of my very best friends and the owner of the fishing vessel that my brother worked on, came into my salon and told me my brother had fallen off the boat in the Bering Sea, and they had been searching for him for 1 hour at that point. And I knew I would never, ever see him again. I also had to accept that they would never, ever recover his body, which they did not. He left behind a 5-week-old son, baby boy, a 5-year-old son, and a beautiful wife. They had just moved to Redmond. They were just starting to build a home. Eric was 44 years old at the time. He was the most amazing person I had ever met. And not just because he was my brother. He was my best friend. He was my rock. He was my partner in crime. He was such a beautiful, beautiful person. And at that moment, my life, like my mom's death, and could not compare. My relationship with my husband could not compare. Eric's death was rock bottom for me. And it was, sometimes I get emotional when I talk about it, obviously, and sometimes I don't. I don't know why so bam, a huge life change and lots of worry, and just, dealing with him being lost at sea. I absolutely knew the risks of what's involved in a career like that, but you never ever think it's going to happen to you. He had been a fisherman for 23 years, I think, at this time. And I just can't explain the loss and how many pieces my heart broke into. It was horrific. So I wanted to quit Beachbody at this point. And I wanted to, I just couldn't open my computer. I just couldn't talk to anybody else. I just could not handle it, and I started reverting back to old habits. All the church ladies came and cooked food for us, and we didn't even know them because Eric and Adrian had just lived in Redmond, and so that's where I went because she had a 5-week-old baby. I couldn't ask her to come to the coast, and so I just lived in her home for 3 weeks from the minute he died, basically. And so for 2 solid days, I only ate snickerdoodles and didn't drink yet, but wanted to, and could not exercise, could not hear anything positive, even though people, I mean, there was just nothing was positive. There was no joy. Everything was gone. I was flatlined. And after the 2 days of snickerdoodles, I started to kind of go within a little bit and know that I was not going to get through this unless I got my shit together, and started back to eating right. I could not cope with adding junk into my system again. I could not cope with drinking a bottle of wine every day. I could not cope with taking pills. I could not cope without sleep. I could not cope without some sort of personal development. I couldn't think about exercise yet, but I knew that I had to get back to that at some point. So my team and my upline wrapped themselves around me, and my husband and my family, and we found our way into a new life. At this time, it was, okay, so it was the first quarter of the year, March of 2012, and I was working, I think I was a 3-star diamond. I was working pretty closely with Keisha Graves at the time, who was amazing. She's our Western regional manager. And so like you, some of you may work with Jessica, we get the opportunity to work with some people in corporate, which is really cool. And it's just one more avenue and one more thing for us to tap into with our lives and with personal development and growing our business. So Keishawn was wonderful. My team was wonderful. Because I had learned through my other 2 tragedies how to survive, I slowly got back into those habits. And I remember being at leadership, not that next fall after Eric died, and listening to John Congdon on stage. And he had gone through a very, very traumatic experience with his health. He had an infection like my mom had, like he died, like what she died of, but his went on for about 3 months. He was in the hospital for a long time. There was many touch and go situations with his life at the time. Infections are not easy to overcome if they're really rampant. And it stemmed from a knee surgery he had. And I remember him telling his story, and what he said was there was a point in his being in the hospital where he said, I can't do it anymore, Carl. I can't do this. I can't give any more energy to this company. I'm sick. I feel like I'm dying. I can't get through this infection. I'm done. And Carl, of course, almost had a heart attack. But what he said was that thought lasted about 5 seconds, and then he snapped back. And he did not disappear. And this is how I felt too. It's like everything that's instilled in us with the personal development that we do every day, and the diet, and taking care of ourselves, and helping other people, had become so strong within me that it had to present itself again. And it's so true when you develop these amazing habits, they will carry you through, they will help you. And they were stronger now than my old me, thanks to Beachbody. So I felt the exact same way. My 5 seconds might have lasted a little bit longer than John Congdon's when I said I couldn't do this anymore, I was going to quit. And I didn't tell anybody that. I might have told one person, but because I didn't want to hear anyone telling me, you can't quit, you can't do this, because I truly, truly wanted to quit. I wanted to disappear. I couldn't do it, man. It was so hard. But those good habits started to slowly come out of me that I'd instilled over the last 4 years. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to take this, and this is going to help me heal. And I'm going to share what I'm going through with people, and hopefully help them and inspire them to help them get through really hard times, and give them some tools that they can grow from and learn from, because there's a lesson in everything, I didn't want to miss those lessons. And I would have missed a lot of them had I disappeared during this time. So I just kind of dug in deep, and I just started, whenever I needed to get something out of me, I would start writing on Facebook. And some of those posts that came out of me at the time are like, if I could probably write a book. Like, they were so healing and touched so many people. And my business started flourishing because why? Because I was being vulnerable on social media. I'd never really done that before. You know, I was a very surface person, and although I do wear my heart on my sleeve, I just wasn't in that mindset of making myself more relatable to people through a tragic situation. I wasn't trying to be private. I don't care about that. Anybody can Google my name and find whatever they want. I have nothing to hide. But why not take this horrid, horrid situation that I was faced with and try to turn it into a positive situation somehow, because I knew that was the only way I was going to get through it. So opening up my computer every day became easier. Helping other people became easier. I was certainly more relatable because I let that wall down, and I let people in to help me and to know my heart and know how broke it was and know how sad I was. But I always had a solution to whatever emotion I was feeling at the time, and that's what I would share. So although sometimes, I mean, it was probably happening as soon as 3 to 4 weeks after Eric died, but it was just started to kind of come out of me, and what I was learning, what I was seeing, how I was hoping to get through this life without my brother. And I felt very orphaned. You know, I'm now no parents, no siblings. I don't have a strong family out there. But Beachbody became my family, and my rock star coach, Ashley, stepped up to the plate, and she was like, "What can I do?" And I said, "Monica's struggling about signing her husband as a coach, and could you please help her, tell her the importance of doing so?" And I turned I turned 4-star diamond within five weeks of Eric dying. I became an elite coach that year. My business blew up that year, and I didn't ask for that. It just happened. And I'm not saying, you may be going through a really bad situation that you want to keep private, and I respect that. And I'm not telling you to go blast it out on Facebook. But what I am telling you is you're going to go through little facets of that situation and that experience that will help you make a beautiful post that you can share with somebody else. I had my team members if I couldn't be in a challenge group, they would get in there and post for me. If they took over, we had just started a team group of some sort of launch that was happening at the time. I can't even remember what it was. And they rallied around and did that. Everything that could have gone wrong and fell apart did not, because I was open to receiving help. I was open to asking for help, and I was open to not losing sight of all this amazing stuff I had learned through Beachbody over the last 4 years to help me get through this. And the other thing that happened at the time was when I had that revelation of not disappearing and living off snickerdoodles for the rest of my life was I had not ever had a really defined why, a really defined reason up until that point of doing this business, which was holding me back and definitely putting a lid on my potential. And when that tragedy happened, when I came out of that snickerdoodle phase, I said, you know what? This is why I'm doing this. I got to see his boys whenever I freaking want to. And I can't do that working 60 hours behind that chair. I cannot do that. So that was like all I could see was freedom. I visualized myself getting in my car every 3 to 4 weeks and going to Redmond to see them. And then they moved to Arizona. So my vision changed to I'm getting on a plane every month so I can go see them. I can't do that working behind the chair. I needed freedom, and I needed it fast. And that is what has been driving me ever since he fell off that boat. So tragedies and life events, life-altering events, and overwhelming experiences can actually work to your benefit if you let them, if you don't disappear. And I hope and encourage all of you to just try not to coincide and cave in and disappear. Keep yourself open to help. Keep yourself open to support. Remember those 3 vital behaviors that have changed your life already. Let them continue to help you and push you forward. Let those life-altering events and overwhelming situations help you redefine your why. Why are you doing this? Let's say you might be, I don't know, having trouble in your marriage, going through a divorce. How can what you're learning help you? How can what you're going through help you? How can what you're going through help somebody else? Try not to be the victim. Try to be the teacher within your tragedy so you can open your heart and share people else, share and help other people. And what I often go back to sometimes is when I feel helpless, help. When I feel helpless, help. Helping somebody else. Another one I go back to is when you replace expectation with appreciation, your life will change in an instant. When you replace expectation with appreciation, your life will change in an instant. So I hope that my story helped you. And I hope that even, we all have those times where even little tiny situations can overwhelm us and make us feel crazy and make us not stick to our power hours. And, baby's throwing up and, my husband's sick and I got called into work, or, this happened, or something's happened throughout the day to mess up my whole schedule. When I really knew I had reached and turned a corner with this last tragedy and tying everything together that I learned through Beachbody over the last four years, was when we were in a car last year at Summit, an Uber, because we were way the heck out at the Gaylord. And my Ashley, who I talked about earlier, coach on my team, got a call that her best friend was just diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And we were in the car and we were going to the John Maxwell training, I believe. And we were sharing a car with a couple other coaches that we didn't really know very well, especially Ashley. I knew them better. And Ashley just lost it. And in that conversation in the car. And I went back and I touched her. And we prayed. And I calmed her down. I don't know how I calmed her down, but I did. And when she talked about that situation a couple weeks later, she said, Shelly has the most amazing way of calming people down in a really, really horrible situation. And I didn't even know that about myself. But that's the full circle that happened in my life. Like, I don't react like I used to. I don't freak out. I don't get all anxious about things. And maybe I'm a little numb from everything that's happened in my life. And sometimes I feel like nothing else, like nothing can be worse than my brother falling off the boat. I've already experienced the worst. So maybe that's part of it. But just knowing, you know what? We don't know the outcome. We don't know what's around the next corner. We don't know that Bobby, her best friend, what even the diagnosis is at this point. But all we can do is think positive and pray and have her in a good place in our heart and move forward from that. And we can't let And I just looked at her and I said, Ashley, you're going to have an amazing time here. And Bobby's okay. She's going to be okay. And we are going to get through this together. But right now, she just needs to hear your voice. And that's all we can focus on. And so, when I hear those compliments, which are hard for me to hear still to this day, I know that I'm in the right way. And I know that I'm on the right path. And I know that through my experiences, I'm only going to help so many more people in this life. And I'm going to matter. And that's important to me. And I didn't know that at the time. And I didn't know that maybe 2 months ago, but I know that now. So try not to disappear if you're going through something hard. Try to be present. Try to ask for help. Try to receive help. And I'm going to leave you with this that I end all these calls with. And I'll share the notes with Jessica so she could pass them on to your team. But I'm going to just talk for a minute about purpose. Purpose comes from within. It works from the inside out. Try not to overthink it, and don't think it has to be clear in one split second. It can take some time. The sooner you know your why, your purpose, the sooner you can shift your focus from yourself to others. People who know their why, their purpose, can keep their heads while everything around them is in turmoil. And that draws others to them. Shake off your emotional and mental shackles that hold you back and live your life with excellence and intention. So you can get out a pen and paper if you like, and you can answer the following questions without a filter. I want you to just blank yourself out of what people may think, what you may think. Just answer these questions. And like I said, I'll share these with Jessica so you have time to process if you need to go a little bit deeper. Number 1 is, what makes you cry? What breaks your heart? What disturbs you? What causes you emotional pain? And what causes you so much discomfort that you are motivated to take action and do something to bring healing to that situation? Think about what you worry about the most when you hit your head on the pillow every single night at the end of the day. Number 2, what do you sing about? What makes you happy? What puts a bounce in your step? What makes you jump for joy? And what feeds your soul? Number 3, what do you dream about? If you could accomplish anything in this world that would make a difference in the lives of others, what would it be? What could your picture be? If you could live out your wildest dream, what would it look like? Think about a day that would be your perfect day. What would that look like? Write that out. And number 4 is, name one word that describes you. What is your one word? Where will this one word take you? How long does it relate to adding values to others? Why is it significant? Keep this word in your mind in the coming weeks and see where it leads you. So one exercise I do with my team from time to time when we're kind of stumped on content and what to post and things are falling flat is we come up with a word. Focus, miracle, consistency, journey, value, determination, whatever that word is, that one word. And we find ways to share that and share content and post about that one word for a week. And then we do another word the next week and another word the next week. And it's just one post a day that you can dabble into your social media or share with your team or just simply journal about or use in your daily life by yourself. But one word. What is one word that describes you? You could use it as a team. You could come up with a team word and you can all share within the page, your team page, about that one word and what it means to you and whether you struggle with it or not. Is it a weakness or is it a strength? So that's what I have for you today, you guys. Thank you very much for listening.
That was amazing, Shelly. You get me every time with your story. It always brings me to tears. But I think the biggest thing for me is just, when you think about what you had said of, don't compare your situation and your stuff to other people's and think that it's less or greater, because you never know the shoes that someone's walking in and what that feels like, or where they're at right now at the current moment in time, and how that situation is affecting them. And, doesn't matter big or small to you. It's still tough. And I think that the biggest thing that I have seen is truly the community of support within Beachbody, like she talks about, of, Shelly's seen it and I've seen it. When you go through tragedy, when you go through struggles, when you go through immense pain, something in life that happens, it's super painful. Things that you least expect, roadblocks. The people that walk away end up, unfortunately, being in a worse spot because the lack of support and people around them to lift them up and motivate them. There's something to be said about the Beachbody community. And I think that's what a lot of people are attracted to becoming Beachbody coaches, is because of the community. It truly is like a family. And that when you are going through whatever stuff you go through or have been through or are going to go through, the more you can talk about it, the more you can open up and share, the more courage you have, the more lives you're going to touch, just like Shelly did. And that's why Shelly's story is so powerful. And, never underestimating the value of your voice and the value of what you have to share, and the breadcrumbing that can happen with the situations that you've been through. And it gives me kind of chills to think about, like, usually we've probably all been through something, right? And I know for me, the stuff I've been through, I actually was just talking to my life coach, like, how do I even begin to put that out there? Like, I'm actually afraid to attract people that still are in immense pain over, like, just that fear of the unknown, right? Of, I could breadcrumb this, but almost afraid of, like, can I truly help them? And it's just your story. It's being there. It's knowing what it's like. You're not saying you know exactly what they're going through, but you understand what they're going through because they've connected, because you have shared your story, and no matter your situation. And that's where the power of the breadcrumbing comes in. And when you can truly think about what it felt like in the moment, like I'm sure Shelly could go back to immediately what she felt like when that car pulled up. Like she shared, she knew something was happening. When you can, that's the relatability. It's not where she's at now necessarily. It's in the moment, pulling out those pain points and writing down those feelings of what you felt like. What did you endure? Like, how did you feel? What are words to describe what that felt like? And it's so crazy. I was telling Shelly, I'm like, this is so crazy to have you on the call, because we have so many people on our team going through stuff right now. And, I was just talking on the way to Ben to my life coach on Monday, a couple days ago, about my situation of, like, how can I share this, with attracting? Mm-hmm. And she had said, like, that exact advice, like, think about in the moment. After that situation happened, what was going through your mind? How did you feel? And create like 5 steps. Yeah. And Shelly does a great job at, like, where did you create those 4 questions? That's incredible. Those are awesome.
I don't even know where it came from, but it came at a time in my life that I was really, really down. Mm-hmm. And so, what, it could have been John Maxwell. They're not my words,
they're awesome.
But they're really, really good. And, the other thing is, when we're faced with a life-altering event, or even your babysitter doesn't show up. I mean, it could be as simple or as little as that feels like a mountain you have to get through for the day, or a huge life-altering event. We're all faced with two roads at any given moment. You can go down the road of being a crazy person and overreacting and making matters worse for yourself because you are freaked out and nothing went as planned, or you can turn it into a situation and just make the best of it and figure out a solution. And, so when Eric died that day, it was like, I have two choices. I can go down the road of Xanax, wine, and snickerdoodles and be a total train wreck for the rest of my life, or I can take the higher road and be a better person and pay my grief forward and heal from it in the process as I'm helping other people. And I had no idea I'd be an elite coach that year. I had no idea I'd end the year as a 6-star diamond. I had no idea that my paychecks would increase. None of that was on my mind. All I knew was I need to go I need to take the higher road. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And the only way I knew that was because of Beachbody and my personal development that I had done, mm-hmm. and taking care of myself and having a clear mind. Because of no sugar. Basically, I'm really bad on sugar, obviously. But yeah, so that's
I think we all are.
But that goes back to the 3 vital behaviors, right? Being a product of the product. If anything, get your Shakeology in.
Yeah.
We're all going to have times when we're going to emotionally eat and binge and do crazy stuff, or forget our personal development for a while. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even have sex for like I wanted to feel no joy, mm-hmm. None at all. I just was like, let me feel this, mm-hmm. but watch out because I'm going to do something amazing with it someday. And I did. And it happened sooner than I expected. But
that just goes to show too, the other thing that my coach had shared was, she was saying how she truly feels like, all of these life-altering situations and tragedies and everything that we experience, are put in our path to help us become the person we need to become in order to leave, create our destiny and to truly become the powerful person we are meant to be. And no, we do not choose to go through this, but, if you believe in God or higher power, whatever it is, that, they know what we can handle. And we are put in these tragedies and these situations to better help, serve and to become the person that we were meant to become. And, to think back on the situations we've been through and the tragedies, like I said, no, we don't choose that. We would never choose those situations ever. But look, like you just said, you started the call, like how are you different, after the fact? Like, it made me really realize a lot when she had said that. And, how did I get to where I was at? And I'm shaking over here. Like, I truly felt like I had to endure that pain. I'm sure you feel like the same thing. Like, it's crazy, but it truly comes full circle and you realize you are living your purpose, and want to better share your story and put it out there more. And I'm not saying to just go out there and start creating your story, throw it up all over the place, but it's all about breadcrumbing and putting it out there authentically for you and from your heart, coming from a place of purpose and intention to connect with more people. And Shelly has done a magnificent job, and you can even go back and look at her Facebook page and see how raw she really was. And no matter what we go through, we're all going to be judged no matter what.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like,
and I still have reservations. Like now, I go through moments now because it's been a little over 2 years where I'm like, everyone's so sick of hearing my story. Like I don't want to tell it again, or I don't want to share that part of it, or, whatever. But you know what? Not everybody's heard it.
mm-mm.
Especially my new friends over the last 2 years. They haven't heard it yet, or they may have missed a post or whatever the case may be. That I am going to still help so many more people because of my story,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit pieces of it. And some people get so deep and dark that I can't pull them out of it, unfortunately, but there's, at least I've tried, and I still think that there's a lot of people who need to hear what I have to say, who can relate, who have suffered great loss and just don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of sometimes just telling them, open up the miracle morning, open up this passage, open up, whatever my intuition is telling me where the direction to steer them. And then I'm like, it totally refuels my heart and refills me and like recharges my battery, so to speak. I'm like walking on cloud 9 again, and I feel good. And it's like, that's because it's my purpose. It's like I am shouting this from the rooftops in a sense, and through my yuck, I can help so many other people. So.
And like you said, when you go back, you're a couple years away, so you almost kind of forget the pain, because I think we all try to move through that pain. But when you go back to that place of how you felt after your situation happened, like what were those feelings? What were those emotions? That is the space you want to share from, because that is the relatability. And, when you're brought back to that place, it chokes you up because you feel that pain. And over time, you try to push it away. You try to pull the rug over, and you try to forget about it, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
But when we can work through it by helping other people and being there for them, and that's what coaching is. That's what Beachbody is. And naturally, when you can add more value to other people's life, and you can be grateful for everything that you have, that's where the abundance is going to come from. It's not about me, what I can get out of this. It's all about, how can I better serve other people? How can I better connect? How can I better put myself out there authentically? Yeah, it scares the holy shit out of me, to share this stuff.
Yeah.
But this is real life. How many other people do you know that have lost a family member through tragedy? Have gone through some serious issues. If you were surrounded with people like that, if that's what your team was, how powerful would you be that you all understood one another? And Shelly's able to pay it forward now, and it just came full circle for her. Like that's the icing on the cake. That is awesome. Absolutely incredible. Do you guys have any questions for Shelly? Everybody's like, totally. Chris, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Let me see. There you go. Did you just unmute?
I did.
Yep, you're there.
So one question I had is that tapping back into those pains that you've had, or like Jesse's talking about, going back to that. That's an area I struggle with a lot. And so if you have any input on that, is, we work so hard as coaches doing personal development all the time, that we are getting past all those issues. And then to go back and tap into that is really hard for me to do, because I've worked so hard to get away from all of those painful feelings or things that had me in the place I was before I was a coach. So to build a post around like tapping back into that, some days I can't even cope with it. And so I don't, because I'm like, I don't want to go back there, because I'm trying to go to a happier place.
I would share that.
Place.
I would share that. I would be like, okay, I know, and I respect that you don't want to go back to that pain, but I wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on where you are now, what you've learned, how much better of a person you are, how much more you've grown, how much happier you are because of that horrific experience. And if you continually focus, like if you focus on that pain, that awfulness, and of course we want to avoid that. I mean, we're made up to avoid pain and to seek pleasure, but turn it around, and go, okay, it's going to feel icky for maybe a minute, but I'm going to tap into that again. And it's a reminder. Like this call right now is a huge reminder to me. I haven't done a call like this for 4 months. And I feel so good right now that, yeah, I cried. I got it out. I relived that moment of that car pulling up at my salon, I'm going to tell you guys something really crazy, but that morning when I was working out, I know the exact moment that my brother fell off the boat. I felt him pass through my body that day. It was right after I finished working out. My husband was he's a big wave surfer. He surfs 45-foot waves on the jet skis. And it was a huge swell that day here on the coast. And he had just left a couple hours prior to my workout. And when I had that feeling, that emotion that actually sent me to my knees on my rubber mat, I thought it was my husband that died. I didn't know. And because he was in a really dangerous situation. And lo and behold, it was my brother that died, which I had found out about an hour and a half after that. So anyways, I would, Christina, go into, it's okay to revisit sometimes. I think sometimes that is like a necessary part of how we can help others better, how we can even help ourselves better, because I'm constantly learning from what happened 2 years ago. That situation will always, always, always be a solid learning tool in my life. And now I'm to the point where I'm okay with the pain because I know that I survived it. I know that it's never going to feel as bad as it did the moment it happened, the moment I was told, if that makes sense. And I would keep using those uncomfortable feelings as tools to help you heal and to help others. That's my advice. I would accept that uncomfortableness and learn from it. Keep learning from it. I know we want to get past it. I know we want to grow, but these situations also can help us for many, many, many years into our future. I believe that. There's no end, I think is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? I guess. It's okay to feel icky. It's a good reminder. It's another good lesson. What else can you pull from it? I would embrace it. There's all kinds of facets to my brother's death that I haven't tapped into yet. One of them is that I really, really convinced myself that I was okay, that they never recovered his body. I'm not okay with that. There's not a lot of closure there. So I'm learning to I have to go back to get through that and revisit and learn from that and help maybe somebody else who's, didn't have closure with somebody's death in their family.
Something too to add to that, that it was shared with me just on Monday was not only to remember what it felt like right after, the situation, but then how did you react? Like, what were your reactions then to the situation? What was your response? And what were things that you did to heal? And for me, those were really hard questions to answer. And I didn't know because I never even went back to that place to try to think about it. My thought in my head was, I don't even know how I got from there to here. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how the healing happened. And so when she asked me those questions, I was like, I don't know. It was like, yeah, I really had to put myself in the moment again, but it was only brief, like, I too never wanted to go back to that place. I never want to remember that feeling, but again, when you go back to that place and you write down those feelings and then, how you reacted to the situation and then how it made you feel and what were things you did to heal from it. When you write those things out, you're going to see a pattern, and it's really interesting. Or it was really interesting for me. You'll see the pattern of kind of how those things are all connected, whether it's courage or strength, or maybe you verbalized it and you talked through it. Maybe it was having one person that was your counselor, or maybe it was your family being surrounded, or the community. You're going to find some sort of pattern throughout each of those. And that is how you help others. So you have done personal development to get to the place you need to be. That's one of your avenues, Chris, is, like how much that has helped you, how much the Beachbody community, how much those things have really helped you get to where you're at. Would you be where you're at today if you weren't doing those things? And those are some of your healing processes. But you also have to remember where you started. And it's not that you have to create all of your posts from that pain point, but you have to remember what it felt like in order to be relatable and to be able to connect to other people. And you can go about sharing that in so many different fashions, so many different breadcrumbs. And I know for me, it's always been kind of like I haven't gotten straight to the point because of that fear of like, oh, who am I going to attract? You'll find your voice and how to share that. And I think those were some tips, at least, that helped me kind of discover, some patterns and those pain points, and, kind of reflecting of healing and how it made me feel, and, just, I guess, a lot of recognition, really.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it into a positive post of
absolutely. Yeah. There's
where you were, you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, every time you do that, you could be coming from a different place of one of those words of how you felt, like, I mean, I have no idea, but you'll figure it out. You'll find your voice. And the more you post and share about it, the more comforting it's going to be. And the more you are going to feel even more comfortable, I think, posting and sharing.
Does anybody else feel that way about posting? Or, I mean, am I alone on that? Like, I'm so focused on going to the place of pleasure. I don't want, sorry, my daughter's eating chips. That was really loud. It's hard to go back and look at where you've been, because you always want to be like focusing on where you're going.
Yeah. I have a coach who struggles with that. She was abused by a church member, and she never told me she was abused, but she was, and she did a post about it, like out of the blue, after I encouraged people to be vulnerable one day on a team call. And it was really, really hard because it brought up so much stuff that she had thought she had gotten past. And if what I told her was, look, if you feel this uncomfortable about it, you're not through it. You haven't completely healed. And use this as a process to continue to heal. And she said the last time she's 40, when I was like 23. And I was like, you've stifled that for a long time. And she wanted to pull it off her Facebook right away. She didn't, she was embarrassed. She was afraid certain people were going to see it, but she kept it up, and it really, really helped her in the long run. Like, she's so glad she did it now. And it, like, yeah, icky stuff resurfaced, but she's worked through them. She went through kind of that pattern that Jessica talked about. You know, she allowed herself to feel it. She didn't hide from it, and used certain life situations now of why that made her the person she is today, that experience, and how she overcame a lot of it, or is overcoming a lot of it. So it was just another facet. Here's some horrible situation that you think is long gone, and 20 some years later it rears its ugly head, and it's part of us becoming who we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when we, I think in situations too, when you share your story and those pain points too, you don't realize how many people around you have gone through the same thing. When we had our first retreat 3 years ago, I was talking about, my life and situations, and all of a sudden all these tears were coming, and it made me cry because, and this was another thing that was pulled out. She's like, well, why did you cry? And I said, I just felt like this emotion through me, like that like so many people on my team had experienced something very similar. And it was just like this, it was what you call it, like a premonition of like this overwhelming feeling. It brought so much emotion of like, oh my gosh, like this is something like I have no problem talking about, but just didn't have any idea of how to just put it out there, because I'm really good at just like spewing it out. And that's not how I want it to come out on social media. And, everybody just started crying. And so then afterwards, it was like all of these stories had come out, and it was just crazy of how that connection right there just connected you so much stronger, with everybody else. And I think it just goes to, being authentic to you and letting the public know that you're not this perfect, shiny object. You've been molded and broken and shattered and put back together, and you're perfectly imperfect with all of these cracks, but those cracks are sealing up tighter and tighter because you're working on you. And when we keep pushing forward and moving forward, we can share that journey. But when we forget about where we came from, that's where we become unrelatable. And the more we can come back to that point of where we were is how we become more relatable to other people, and they see where we're at, and that's where they want to be. So does anybody have any more questions? We should probably wrap this up, an hour and 20 minutes into all. It's getting pretty deep. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So much. And I will post up the recording, and I will also post those. If you have those 4 questions, I can post those with the recording too.
I will. Do you want me to send them to you in an inbox, or?
Either way, you can Facebook message me or email me, whatever works best for you.
I'll do Facebook message. I'll get them up right away.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shelly. That was amazing.
You guys, good luck.
Thank you. And
have a great coach.
Oh, thank you. Have an amazing day, you guys. And again, thank you, Shelly, for your time.
Welcome.
Have a wonderful day.